They say your home is your sanctuary, a place where you feel safe, in control. But what happens when someone decides your boundaries don't matter? When power, pride, and petty control cross the line literally. This is the story of how one man stood his ground, exposed a neighborhood tyrant, and took back what was his, one drop of water at a time. I had always enjoyed the quiet of living just outside the reach of the HOA. That thin strip of land between my fence and the boundary line was freedom, a few feet of peace that kept me from getting fined over grass height or holiday lights. I had built my home there with purpose. I dug my own well, set up a filtration system, and ran my life the way I saw fit. No interference, no HOA drama, or so I thought. It started with brown water. One morning, I turned on the bathroom tap, and instead of the usual clean stream, a foul, murky gush splattered into the sink. It smelled like stagnant sewage. At first, I figured something had busted underground. Maybe an old pipe cracked, but then the water bill came in. It was 3 times the usual amount. That was the moment I felt it in my gut. This wasn't just plumbing. This was theft. The only person who came to mind was Karen Bellamy. She was the self-appointed queen of the HOA, a woman whose idea of power was micromanaging other people's lives. She lived 2 houses down, inside the HOA zone, but had long made it clear she believed my land should fall under her rule. She sent newsletters to my mailbox, slapped warning stickers on my trash bins, and once told me my fence was visually disruptive to the neighborhood aesthetic. All this despite me not being part of her jurisdiction. Still, I ignored her until now I started paying attention. At night, when I knew all the taps were off, I noticed the pressure would drop ever so slightly, like something was pulling water somewhere down the line. So I set up a trail camera pointing toward the back of the property where our fences nearly touched. 2 nights later, I got my answer. At 2:17 a.m., her handyman Chuck, the same guy she used to paint curbs and install garden gnomes for HOA members, crept across the back of her yard. He carried a bundle of pipes, a hose splitter, and a flashlight between his teeth. I watched as he crouched beside the boundary and spliced into my backup line, one that connected to my well system. He buried it hastily and disappeared. She was stealing my water, not a few gallons, not a leaky faucet, full siphoning. Her lawn was pristine green in the middle of summer. Her pool was sparkling. She even held a weekend party with one of those inflatable foam pits for kids. And all of it was powered by my water. I confronted her the next day. I kept it civil. I showed her the video. I expected denial, maybe embarrassment. Instead, she laughed. Actually laughed. Then slammed the door in my face. That's when I realized this wasn't just pettiness. It was entitlement. She didn't see this as theft. She believed it was hers by default. That made it personal. Legal action was too slow. I called the sheriff's office, but they were tangled in red tape. Since the water line was on my property, but the output was on hers, jurisdiction got fuzzy fast. I needed something quicker. At the back of my barn, I kept a cattle tank used for runoff filled with old leaves, mosquito larvae, and more muck than any sane person would touch. It smelled like swamp death. I rerouted the backup water line to it. Then I waited. Saturday came, at noon. Her backyard burst into life. Guests, champagne, a blow-up movie screen. I watched from my porch as Karen strutted through her yard, showing off her roses, and then it happened. Her guest turned on the garden hose. A jet of thick brown sludge exploded into the air, splashing the patio, her porch cushions, and Karen's white capri pants. People screamed. Someone gagged. A kid started crying. Karen yelled for Chuck. But the damage was done. She stormed over the next morning, red-faced and trembling with rage, accused me of poisoning her water, threatened lawsuits, demanded an apology. I didn't flinch. I showed her the footage again, the edited one, zoomed in and time-stamped. This time, I had audio too. Chuck mumbling about the boss lady's water order. I also showed her the sheriff's report where I had preemptively logged the illegal tap-in. Her threats went silent. Her mouth opened, closed. Then she walked away. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. Karen doubled down, called an emergency HOA meeting, posted flyers on local lampposts declaring me a hostile neighbor, even tried to spin the story as if I had damaged her pipes and defamed her reputation. I wasn't a member of the HOA, but I showed up to that meeting anyway. I brought every bit of evidence. I had the footage, the pipe blueprints, the statements from two neighbors who saw Chuck working past midnight. One of the board members, Mark, a retired civil engineer, took one look at the footage and whistled low. She stole water. No doubt. Karen tried to interrupt, but no one let her. The community had heard enough. By the end of that night, the vote was unanimous. She was removed from her position. The HOA president seat was declared vacant. Karen stormed out, muttering about lawsuits that never came. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. Her once pristine lawn began to brown. The party stopped. The pool drained. The mailbox sat stuffed with uncollected flyers and catalogs. No more newsletters. No more complaints. Neighbors began to come by. Some brought pie. Others just nodded in solidarity. Turns out, she had fined half the block for meaningless infractions over the year's wreath colors. Trash can placement. How early someone set up Halloween lights. A month later, a for sale sign went up on her lawn. I stood at the edge of my property and watched the moving truck pull away. She never looked back. The HOA slowly rebuilt itself, this time, with new leadership and fair rules. The community, once fractured by fear and fines, started to feel whole again. One crisp autumn afternoon, I planted an oak tree right where Karen's illegal pipe used to cross. I didn't mark it with a sign or tell anyone why, but I knew that tree was more than wooden leaves. It was a symbol, a reminder that rights matter, even when they're small, that boundaries exist for a reason, and that sometimes standing your ground isn't just about what you defend, but how you defend it. In the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity, and maybe, just maybe, teaching a tyrant that no matter how many rules she makes, she can't rewrite what's right.